total sum of the contracts. Mr. Williams is a born Guyanese and is entitled like any other contractor who, when bids are advertised, tenders, and is qualified to do such a job, he should be awarded the contract, and based on the competence, should continue to be awarded. Mr. Williams, along with other contractors in the region, like Mr. Grant, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Ward, just to name a few, are looking out for contracts to be awarded to them out of this $1.146 trillion budget. I also heard that the honorable member made mention of $200 million being allocated for sports grounds this year, and made sports grounds this year, and made mention of my home village several times. Kako Village, my beautiful village, clean indigenous community. To which, Mr. Speaker, I extend an invitation to you, your staff, and the members of this House to visit. What is saddening and disappointing that honorable member failed to mention, Mr. Speaker, is that in the year 2022, when the PPP was in government of the day, it was Kako Village's turn to host the district tournament, and that it has been a culture over the years that the hosting village, in preparation for the hosting of the game, has to ensure that the ground is safe, suitable to host the football, the volleyball, the other track and field events and matches during the day and night. Hence, the government of the day is always asked to assist in making this a reality for the young people. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, the 11 clubs from the various villages in the Upper Mazaruni were totally disappointed when they couldn't play some of the matches during the evening or the night as how the matches would have been played in other communities in Upper Mazaruni. Or like the grounds in Georgetown, who play football matches under the floodlights. His Excellency himself was asked to donate a generator to light up the floodlights, which were...
You need to stop with that.
Okay. Sorry, the government of the day was asked to donate a generator to light up the floodlights, which were already procured and bought by the APNU AFC in 2020. Lo and behold, you will never know. Lo and behold, the day before the commencement of the game, there was no generator in sight on the ground. The team from Georgetown, the government team that is, was expected to arrive for the opening of the games the next day, which was a Sunday. The generator arrived as if it was an advanced security during the night before the arrival of the team. By then, Mr. Speaker, it was too late for it to be installed and to get the light. And to add injury to insult, Mr. Speaker, it was announced publicly that the generator was rented and would have to be returned to Georgetown. Imagine chartering a flight to fly in the generator to Cameron, then to hire a boat to take it up to Kako, plus the rent that had to be paid for the days it spent on the ground without being used, and then the return cost. Take it back to Cameron, then fly it out back to Georgetown. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, unto this date, at this time, the sports ground in my village of Kako has never been lighted up with the floodlights. The floodlights are there on the posts. I guess that was one of the occurrence of because we care. This is the picture of the rented generator that was returned. Mr. Speaker, since Mr. Hamilton, the honorable member of this House, chose to speak a lot about the past that happened under the governance of APNU-AFC, I wish to remind this honorable House of the good things that happened. Under the APNU-AFC, like I said, floodlights were distributed to every community who are hosting the district games. Here is a picture of the former minister then, Nicolette Henry, handing over floodlights to the Camarang Sports Club. Mr. Speaker, one of the good things, and which is of importance to mention, is that our policies, programs, and plans were people-centered, with a clear vision of the role and importance of ICT towards the modernization of Guyana's economy. The government then continued to work vigorously to stimulate growth of the ICT sector, resulting in expansion and emergence of major ICT and e-government projects. To name a few, Mr. Speaker, video conferencing equipment for use in the telemedicine applications were installed in 4 health facilities, namely Baracara, Oriala, New Amsterdam, and Bartica. The Center for Excellence in ITC was launched in June 2019. Mr. Speaker, we did not starve our hinterland residents of access to information and knowledge of current and foreign affairs. We had set the pace and the foundation in establishing radio stations throughout the country. ICT hubs, whether you win or you lose, the people remember what you did for them. Mr. Speaker, the hubs were built and some buildings were identified for connection and the installment of ICT and e-services for hinterland, poor and remote communities project was operationalized in 2019. Mr. Speaker, I have spoken to teachers, nurses, and other workers in the hinterland who have applied to do online courses but have not been able to do so successfully due to the lack of connectivity. And the few who manage to commence are making sacrifice to buy megabytes from private satellite internet services in the communities. And many, Mr. Speaker, have lamented that they may not be able to continue or ever dream of completion due to the high costs. I can also recall approaching Minister of Education, whom I have great respect for, Mrs. Priya Manikchan, honorable member, about the teachers who were enrolled to do online course but were unable to do so in my region, and specifically in Upper Mazaruni. And I am much appreciative that she came up with something, and that is to bring them out to Georgetown to attend classes at CPCE, and most of them graduated at the end of last year. This is commendable, Honorable Priya Manikchan. Mr. Speaker, on July 18, 2019, Honorable Don Hastings Williams, Minister of State then, led the national delegation which presented the first voluntary national review, VNR, of the Sustainable Development Goals at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum under the auspices of the Economic and Social Council. Why I make mention of this, Mr. Speaker? The VNR entailed the review of all SDGs. A notable progress had been made in food security, climate change mitigation, and natural resource management. His Excellency then, the President David Granger, highlighted goal number 4, quality education, as the mother of all goals. A review of the Guyana human rights will be soon laid at the United Nations. My hope, I trust that the issue or the matter at hand with the Chinese landing will be dealt with and a report will be given at that UN sitting. I trust, and the indigenous people are looking forward for same. Mr. Speaker, 2024 budget themed Staying the Course, Building Prosperity for All had been laid in this House on January 15, 2024. Sophisticated as it may have sounded, a hard rock budget, as some have described it to be, there are so many questions left to be answered. One, has the budget catered for persons in all walks of life in this country? Or is there a gap? Thank you for waking up. Or is there a gap between the aspirations of this budget and the unvarnished reality? Are there provisions in this budget for the total well-being and happiness of every citizen or the majority? Mr. Speaker, I can recall quoting from a certain book entitled Reflections on Happiness and Positivity, and I will repeat it again, where the author in his own style explained what happiness is. He said, and I quote, "There are 2 types of happiness: personal happiness, which is its own science, and the happiness of society as a whole, which is what we seek to achieve through our public services. It is about feeling safe and secure in your surroundings and the society in which you live." He goes on to say that happiness does not fall on the programs that are separate from government's daily work. Happiness is the main focus of government work, and the entire budget must be considered as dedicated to achieving the happiness of our people. End of quote. My question then again to this honorable House: does this hard rock budget do just that for the people of Guyana?
Honorable member, I want to do just this for you. You need an extension.
Comrade Speaker, I move that the honourable member will be given 5 minutes to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Chief Whip. Honorable member, you have 5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish now to quote from an Indian guru who said, "There is a big difference between growth, progress, and success." If the budget is increased year after year from millions to billions, from billions to trillions, that undoubtedly is growth. However, growth must be aided by ethics, that is honesty, discipline, and norms. Norms such as transparency, accountability, integrity, all this contribute to what is called progress. Progress plus humanity morality, and spirituality is called success. So the budget's getting bigger and bigger year after year does not necessarily mean you are successful in pursuit of the happiness of your citizens. I say all this to say that 1.146 trillion budget will mean nothing to the majority of the Guyanese population, the working class, the poor and the vulnerable, the old age pensioner who are struggling to meet ends in this oil-rich country, especially when there is no desire to find a common ground for a good cause that will have impact on the lives of our citizens. We would have heard many recommendations coming out from the previous speakers on this side of the House, and my hope is that these recommendations be considered in the interest of the people of Guyana and not be ignored at the end of the debates and consideration of this budget. Mr. Speaker, let me now quickly turn attention to the region in which I hail from, the famous Cuyuni-Mazaruni region. I was touted by none other than Minister Honorable Gail Teixeira as the most expensive region. Yes, a good thing is always expensive. Region 7 has most of the gold mines, the diamond mines, the beautiful waterfalls, the pristine forests, the rivers, the timber, flora and fauna. Beautiful people too. This region, is it because then it is the most expensive region that they will continue to be neglected? I remember when I came to government as a government in 2015, yes, I was told the region is too expensive and we may not be able to do the hinterland housing program. But I made representation. I said, let us try it out. And we built 23-bedroom houses in Upper Mazaruni, which was halted in 2020. Unto this day, there has not been another house built for the residents there. So, Mr. Speaker, I call on this government to make Region 7 then a special case. Do a special study and let this budget find ways and means to cater for the people of the region, people of region number 7. They are Guyanese too, and they are in the Essequibo. Please, I am asking, Essequibo is our own, and we need to cater for the needs of the children, the parents, the students. Under APNUFC, we built 6 primary schools within 3 years. 6 new primary schools in Bamadai, Cameron, Kako, Parimo, the village from which Mr. Lee hails, Etrimbang. And I don't like to compare, Mr. Speaker, because comparison kills creativity. But I must say that for the past 3 years, there has been no new school built in my region. One Ramadan Primary was dismantled sometime, and to this day, the children are attending classes in various buildings. And I ask Minister Panichan that please let the school be completed this year so that the children of Ramadan Primary School can go back to normal classroom settings. Mr. Speaker, the lone school, Dashie Fox Secondary School, continues to be plagued with many challenges. No adequate water supply. In this 21st century, the children still have to fetch water in buckets from the creek and the rivers to bathe and to wash their clothes and dinners, which is very, very sad. It's a sad situation. I ask us to look into this matter. Let us look at it. The GWI or whichever needs to do something with that well, that it should provide adequate water to the dormitories and to the community as a whole. Water supply, 5 miles, Cameron, Jawala. I know wells were installed there. Please note, Mr. Minister of Housing and Water, that the water in Jawala and Camarang is inadequate. Half of the community on the right side of the airstrip do not receive. That includes the hospital, the police stations, the Amerindian hostel. They do not receive water supply on a daily basis. So when the pump that pumps the water from the river to the hospital, if it breaks down, the staff has to fetch water in buckets. It is sad in this 21st century that we still have to do that. I trust and I hope that this budget will rectify and correct these anomalies that happens in our hospital and schools. And with that said, Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Now for the Honorable Minister of Amerindian Affairs, the Honorable Pauline Sukai.